Let's dive straight actually into those questions from people at home because we have very little time.
Let me just make a little comment on this issue of tax.
Maybe you can answer it along with all these other questions because look at all the papers I have, yeah? So this is from Abdurrahman Leme, who says, what moral high ground do you have to ask Nigerians for their trust in you to fight corruption when you are one of the biggest beneficiaries of corruption? The other one says, the federal government under which you served allegedly spent 16 billion generating power without substantial improvement. How can you promise us that you are going to improve power? Then I want to know your thoughts on the CJ saga, the circumvention of the law allegedly by Mr. President, and the clear evidence against Onogeng. What is the ideal outcome in your view to this situation? And then finally, maybe we'll take one more. Dear Alhaji Atiku, is the granting of a private university license to yourself while in government a conflict of interest? And isn't it criminal that you left public universities in a rut just to build one of the best private universities in Nigeria? So these are questions from the audience that we have, and maybe we could take that.
Can I come in?
Yes.
Let me again tell you. Let me answer from the last one. He built a private university. Tell me who else among his class that built one. And to show you that he wasn't building the university for money, he built it in Adamawa. He had opportunity as vice president to take land in Abuja and build it, or build it in Lagos. He saw the imperative of education for development and went to develop an area that shouldn't have been developed. I want us to deviate. Can
I ask a quick question on education, please? Yeah?
Yes, go on.
Let me ask a quick question on education. When you are in a country like Nigeria, where public education has become really poor, and I think virtually all of us here are beneficiaries of public school, the general hope is that people in public office would actually focus on fixing public schools, the same public schools that they benefited from, as opposed to setting up private institutions that are only affordable to a few. Isn't that really an important issue to look at?
Let me help you. Under PDP, they started...
This is according to a 2008 National Assembly report.
Let me even tell you.
It's not from any number that we just put it out.
Let me even tell you. $16 billion
yes.
As at the time PDP was in government, at an approximate rate of 150, is 2.4 trillion. This particular government,
is continuation a problem in government?
PDP can even show you where they spend those 16.
Is it your view that continuation in government is a problem? Meaning, if you come into government today, will you truncate everything that has been started by a previous administration?
Let me tell you. Let me give you an example. You saw APC commissioning airports. They did not put 1 naira in those airports. It was loan obtained by PDP, counterpart funding fully paid. They only came and delayed the project, and then now that the election is coming, they are commissioning. Okay. You saw them talking about train.
We've got 10 minutes, and we have a few questions. Yeah. So try and.
I was going to go to issue of tax.
Because I want to go back to Alhaji Atiku.
I want to go back to issue of tax because he talked about tax.
Okay.
I'm taking his authority to say what I'm saying here because he is in charge, and I'm taking his authority to do that. And I'm saying, if you're talking about the issue of tax and lowering tax, look at all the places where there've been fast development. Let's take issue of Dubai. It was a desert when they told everybody, no tax, nothing, the world came there. So when you lower tax, the world will come in. And if you're talking about private sector-driven economy, you need the private sectors to come and invest.
So what will you use for your programs if you lower tax, you are a mono economy, and yet you keep talking about these ambitious programs that you are going to run? Where is the money going to come from?
Let me tell you where the money will come from. This is what I'm saying. Let me tell you where the money is going to come from. And I've used 2 economies in Africa to tell you. The budget of South Africa is $120 billion, 55 million people. The budget of Nigeria is 30 billion, 198 million people. What it didn't show is the missing link. The missing link is that South Africa have put their economy, knowing the deficit and everything, that everything has to be driven by private sector. So it reduces corruption. So instead of going to build airports, build ports where you have to put in your relations and everything to run them, you put it in a private sector hand where they can go to the capital market, borrow money, do it more efficiently. It helps your capital market to grow. It helps the system. By that, you create more jobs, like what you were talking about.
Okay. Quick questions, because I'm told, they're in my ear. In Ikot Abasi, a facility that was built for close to $3.5 billion, sold for 250 million naira. $250 million, way below market price. Then we have issues of when NITA was privatized, it's only this year we started paying pensioners. So people are saying actually privatization under you was a bit of a mixed bag. It's not this big success that is being touted. What's your response to that?
Well, in any policy that you implement, you are bound to find, some mistakes here and there. But in the overall,
so you admit to mistakes.
Overall, if you look at the reform, of our government and also the privatization policy, you find that it's a huge success. It's a huge success.
What did you do then that you will not do on your second coming? Do you have any regrets? Are there any things that when you look back and you think, well, I've learned from that, and if I come back as president, I will avoid this?
Yeah, I decide not to do. We will have the right.
Registered. And the primary job of that business was clearing and logistics.
I'm sorry.
At a time, let me ask, and then you can clarify. Because at a time when you were a customs officer who was responsible, actually, for making sure that the business of clearing and forwarding was done lawfully and that Nigeria was paid duty according to all the rules that were laid down. Now, is that information that's in the public domain accurate or not?
It's not correct.
Okay.
Let me tell you. Nicotes at that time was not registered as a clearing and forwarding agency. It was a registered company to undertake logistics in oil and gas. And that is what it still does. No more, no less.
This is the same company that transformed and metamorphosized into Intels.
That's right.
And which in 2006 was given extended 25-year concession in some key ports in this country. But more than that, it was given monopoly for the oil and gas sector at a time when you were the vice president of Nigeria.
Again,
do you see that this could be a moral problem or not?
Again, you are very, very incorrect.
Okay, please correct us.
Because the issue of monopoly was not there. There were still companies that we met in the ports that were doing exactly what Intels was doing. So there is no question of monopoly. It's a complete misrepresentation of the facts. There was no monopoly at all.
Calabar, Warri, One, all concessions to you and nobody else.
No, it's not all of One. It's not all of Warri. It's not all of
the oil
Calabar.
and gas business, the logistics oil and gas business was
there
you.
was competition, and there is still competition.
No, now there is.
No, there was. There was still competition.
Okay, so
you know, what you should have done was to make or conduct a research.
I
Kadiria.
did. I did.
They are where?
I did.
What was Browell doing?
This is.
No, I was asking.
This is on your company website, by the way.
Wait
This is
a
not
minute.
information from an outsider.
No,
I'm
but-
taking this from your company website.
But you should have also cross-checked to see whether what the company was saying is correct or not.
Your company made a mistake about the fact that they have a monopoly.
Is quite possible.
Okay. Let me, in a brewery, Interfact, I think, beverages. Your company next, according to the Corporate Affairs Commission, is a major shareholder in this particular brewery. How can you justify that? That you took money belonging to Anambra State and the people of Anambra State and invested it in a business in which you are a major shareholder. Plan for tackling corruption, which you've agreed is a problem in this country. What is it? I'd like to hear what you plan to do.
I have said that there is need for us to go by the adage of the English saying, which says prevention is better than cure. We can have both going side by side. Punitive measures, preventive measures.
That actually, they don't see any daylight between the PDP and the APC.
No, there
as
is.
As far as they are concerned, you are the same.
Let me
because
tell you,
you
there
keep
is.
moving. No, let me finish. The Nigerian politician seems to have no issues moving from one party to the other, depending on which party is going to allow him to contest. And the two of you sitting here are no exception.
The actually is.
Who is an exception, if I may ask you? Is it President Buhari who had 4 parties? Who is an exception? Anyway, I like what you said.
It is exactly
Yes,
the point I'm making.
yes,
It's exactly,
Yes.
because sometimes, let me finish. On this program alone, we've had 2 other parties that offer alternatives to both the APC and to the PDP. And the people who are followers of this party point to this particular issue as one of the reasons why people should vote neither for the PDP nor for the APC. They see you as the same.
Let me tell you the difference. The difference is that those who are in PDP today are actually cleaner, because there are those who are not running away from persecution. The people remaining. Those who have bad records have moved on to APC because they can't stand what is happening. So they've actually moved. And to further tell
Let's talk. Let's have a serious. This is a serious platform. Let's have a serious conversation.
Yeah, I want to be serious about it.
Let's have a serious conversation. Excuse me. Please have respect for Nigerians who are watching this. Thank you.
Let me be serious about it.
Okay, let's be serious about this conversation that we're having. You, apart from PDP, you were a member of another party, ABGA. And in fact, part of the criticism against you from a few people that I spoke to in Anambra, including newspaper articles that I researched, is that you had an opportunity to build ABGA, to be a third national party, and you abandoned it. And the reason you abandoned it, presumably, or I was told, is because you felt it did not allow you to play politics at the center. So I'm trying to understand this issue of Nigerian politicians who...
No, what is wrong in that? If I have to go to London, Canary, and I have a vehicle, and I can drive my car from Lagos, from Onitsha to Lagos, and I found that I can't drive the same car to London and join a plane, what is wrong in it? So,
no, it is for
it is Mr. Obi having an opportunity to help in building a better society. If I'm going to do it better here, I'll join here. Like I said today, PDP, actually, if you check, all you've said about Atiku and Abubakar It's alleged, alleged, alleged. Even when he went to America, they shouted that before he comes back, he will face question. He has since come back, no question. But I can tell you, if you go on the other side, and you can see it everywhere. So, issue of fighting.
But again, I'm not sure that I am understanding the how. Okay. The how is a little bit, iffy.
Okay. Yeah, it's quite possible. You lift people out of poverty through empowering particularly women.
And yet Adamawa still remains one of the poorest states in Nigeria.
Yes, but
and
why?
They've had you, a man who's been vice president for 8 years, someone who... I am going to ask the questions no matter how you shout, so you might as well just let me talk. I am going to ask the questions.
Ask.
So the Adamawa still remains one of the poorest countries, and therefore, if you talk about people who want to look at antecedents, because you kept talking about your record, and so it's a fair question for people to ask, if your home state has not seen an appreciable change as a result of your major sitting in an office of that of the vice president, why should we believe you would do better for the rest of Nigeria?
Again, you have got it wrong, because you didn't try to compare what was it before and now.
Okay. Good evening, Nigerians, for a better Nigerian. And I'm directing my question to Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And it's regarding employment and job creation, because that's what you keep mentioning. And as a successful businessman, I'll put it this way. I'm an applicant applying to work in your successful company. And after passing through some processes, your HR department, that's the human resource department, asked me to provide a referee from my previous place of work to enable me secure the job. And I have something to say. This is the response of my employer, whom I've worked with for the past 8 years. And this is what he has to say, and I quote: his propensity to corruption, his tendency to disloyalty, his inability to say and stick to the truth all the time, his propensity for poor judgment, his belief and reliance on marabout, his lack of transparency, his trust in money to buy his way on all issues, and his readiness to sacrifice morality, integrity, propriety, truth, national interest for self and selfish interest. My question is, if my previous employee forward this reference to you, will you employ me?
Okay, thank you. We get the question. We get the... That's fine. That's fine. We have the question. Please, can we have some silence? Basically, a quote from your former boss, President Obasanjo, describing you. And the question was whether if you were an employer and somebody sent that reference for someone that you wanted to employ, whether you would give him a job, implying that given what Obasanjo said about you, why should Nigerians employ you? The second question was to do with how you would deal with the herder-farmer problem, and the third one was on health.
Thank you. I recommend him for the job.
Let's interrogate that a little before we pass through. Let's interrogate that a little. If someone, you've done something to someone and they've forgiven you, for example, it doesn't mean the crime didn't take place. It doesn't mean that what was said to have happened didn't happen. It just means the person has decided to move on, or that you are the lesser of two evils if they are comparing you to another person. Some of his allegations were quite specific. You need to...
Kaduria, you must know that nobody has been investigated by Obasanjo more than myself. if Obasanjo could not find me guilty of any wrongdoing, then I don't think those, statements stand.
Did he lie about you?
I'm not here to say that. I'm not here to say that.
But it's curious.
It's up to my employers. It's up to my employers to say or not. But if I have also instituted